The twisted metal spires of New Shanghai pierced the smog-filled sky like accusatory fingers pointed at the heavens. Commander Sarah Chen stood at the window of her quarters, watching the glow of the city's defense shield ripple against the perpetual brown haze. 20 years of war had transformed Earth's last megacities into fortresses, and New Shanghai was the crown jewel of humanity's resistance against the Nexian Empire. Sarah's reflection stared back at her from the reinforced glass. Sharp features, close-cropped black hair streaked with premature gray, and eyes that had seen too much death. The medal ceremony earlier that day still felt surreal. Another commendation for exceptional valor in defense of human interests. Another step up the military hierarchy. And now this, a gift that made her stomach turn. The Nexian sat in the corner of her quarters, its iridescent skin shifting through shades of blue and violet. Unlike the warrior caste Sarah had fought on countless battlefields, this one was smaller, more delicate. A scientist, they told her, captured during the raid on the Nexian research facility on Mars. The brass called it a tradition, a reward for distinguished service, gifting high-value prisoners to decorated officers. Sarah called it slavery. "Do you have a name?" Sarah asked, breaking the silence that had stretched between them since the ceremony. The Nexian's multifaceted eyes focused on her. "Verix," it said in perfect standard English, its voice carrying an unusual harmonic quality. "Though I doubt you ask out of genuine interest, Commander Chen." Sarah turned fully away from the window, studying the creature. No restraints, no control collar, just a simple metallic band around its wrist, marking it as military property. "You'd be surprised." "Would I?" Verix's skin rippled with patterns Sarah had never seen before. "Your military record suggests otherwise. The hero of Olympus Mons, the butcher of New Sydney. Your victories against my people are well documented. You've read my file. I read everything I can access. Knowledge is survival." Verix stood with an unnaturally fluid grace. "Just as I know you've never accepted a prisoner gift before, despite 3 previous opportunities. Your superiors are watching to see what you'll do with me." Sarah's hand instinctively moved toward her sidearm. "If you know so much, then you know what I'm capable of. Violence, yes, but also mercy. The civilians you evacuated from the Sydney containment zone, against orders. The Nexian younglings you rescued from the Mars facility." Verix took a step forward. "You're not what they think you are, Commander. Neither am I." The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. Those missions were classified, the details buried in redacted reports. How could you possibly know about that? "The same way I know that in 3 days, your military leadership will announce a breakthrough in the war effort. A new weapon, they'll call it. The key to final victory." Verix's skin darkened to a deep indigo. "What they won't tell you is that it's based on my research. Research they twisted into something monstrous." Sarah's mind raced. She'd heard whispers about a game-changing development, something that would finally break the stalemate. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you're going to have to make a choice, Commander. Sooner than you think." Verix moved closer, its voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "They didn't give me to you as a reward. They gave me to you as a test. The question is, what kind of test are they really conducting?" The city's warning sirens began to wail, right on schedule for the evening curfew. But for the first time in years, Sarah barely heard them. Her attention was fixed on the Nexian, on the impossible things it knew, on the choice it claimed was coming. "If I'm your test," Sarah said carefully, "then you're mine. And I don't like being manipulated by either side." Verix's skin shifted to a color Sarah had never seen before, something between silver and starlight. "Then perhaps we can agree on something, Commander. Neither of us is what we appear to be. And neither of us is truly free." As night fell over New Shanghai, Sarah Chen stood in her quarters with an enemy who knew too much, wondering if everything she'd fought for had been built on lies. The war had taught her to trust her instincts, and right now, they were screaming that Verix was telling the truth, a truth that would shake both their worlds to the core. The real question was, what would she do about it? Sleep eluded Sarah that night, her mind churning with Verix's words. Dawn found her in the secure briefing room, buried deep beneath New Shanghai's reinforced streets. The holographic display cast her fellow officers in harsh blue light as they reviewed the latest battle reports. The Nexian forces are withdrawing from the Jupiter colonies, Colonel Rivera announced, his weathered face tight with suspicion. No explanation, no final stand. They're just leaving. Sarah studied the tactical display, watching the red dots of Nexian ships retreat. After years of bitter fighting over every inch of space, the sudden withdrawal made no sense. Unless they know something we don't, she said, earning sharp looks from around the table. The timing is too convenient. Rivera's eyes narrowed. Elaborate, Commander. We're about to announce a new weapon, aren't we? Sarah kept her voice steady, watching their reactions, something that could turn the tide. The silence in the room was deafening. Finally, General Hayes spoke from the head of the table. That information is classified, Commander. Though I'm curious how you came by it. Intuition. Sarah lied smoothly. The Nexians' behavior suggests they're responding to a threat we haven't revealed yet. Hayes studied her for a long moment before nodding. Your intuition serves you well. In 3 days, we announce Project Phoenix. The end of this war is finally within our grasp. The briefing continued, but Sarah barely heard it. Her mind was on Verix, alone in her quarters, and the terrible knowledge the alien possessed. When she finally returned, she found Verix exactly where she'd left it, studying the city through her window. Your military leaders seem troubled by your insights, Verix said without turning around. Sarah froze. How? The same way I know Project Phoenix isn't a weapon at all. Verix's skin rippled with dark patterns. It's a virus designed to target specific genetic markers in Nexian biology. A genocide in a bottle. That's impossible. We wouldn't. Your scientists took my research on cellular regeneration and perverted it. Verix finally turned to face her. I was developing a cure for a genetic defect in our warrior caste. Your leaders saw the potential for something far darker. Sarah's mind raced. A biological weapon would explain the Nexians' sudden withdrawal if they'd somehow learned of it. But the implications, why tell me this? Why not tell your people? Who says I haven't? Verix's skin shifted to that impossible silver starlight color again. But warning them isn't enough. The virus is ready. Even if my people retreat to the outer system, your leaders will find a way to deploy it. Unless what? Unless someone stops them. Someone with access. Someone they trust. Verix moved closer. Someone like the hero of Olympus Mons. Sarah laughed bitterly. You're asking me to commit treason. I'm asking you to prevent mass murder. Verix's voice carried an edge she hadn't heard before. But first, I need you to verify everything I've told you. Go to Lab Complex 7, Sublevel 3. Use access code Delta 97 Echo. See for yourself what Phoenix really is. Sarah's hand moved to her sidearm again, a habit born of years of combat. If you're lying, then you lose nothing except some sleep. But if I'm telling the truth, Verix's skin darkened. Can you live with yourself if you do nothing? That night, Sarah found herself in the depths of Lab Complex 7, her security credentials opening doors that shouldn't have existed. What she discovered there changed everything. Project Phoenix wasn't just a weapon, it was an abomination. The virus would spread through the Nexian population like wildfire, targeting not just their warriors, but every man, woman, and child. Billions would die in agony as their own cellular regeneration turned against them. In the secure vault, Sarah stared at the innocuous vials of clear liquid, each one capable of ending a civilization. Her commendations felt heavy on her chest, weights rather than honors. Everything she'd fought for, everything she believed in, was tainted by this. When she returned to her quarters, Verix was waiting. Now you know, it said simply. Why me? Sarah's voice was hoarse. Of all the officers they could have given you to, why me? Because there are those among both our peoples who have been watching, waiting for someone with both the power and the conscience to act. Varrix's skin rippled with complex patterns. The gifting system isn't just about rewarding soldiers, Commander. It's about identifying potential allies. Sarah sank into a chair, the weight of revelation pressing down on her. There's more, isn't there? More than just Phoenix. So much more. Varrix's voice was gentle now. The question is, are you ready to see how deep the rabbit hole goes? Outside, New Shanghai's defense shield shimmered against the toxic sky, a barrier between humanity and the stars. But as Sarah looked at her gift, this creature who had shown her an terrible truth, she realized the real barriers were the ones in her mind, and they were beginning to crack. The maintenance tunnels beneath New Shanghai were supposed to be empty during curfew hours, yet here Sarah was, following Varrix through the labyrinth of forgotten passages, her pulse quickening with every shadow. Her sidearm felt heavier than usual, a reminder of everything she might have to sacrifice before the night was over. Your surveillance devices won't work down here, Varrix said, its skin glowing faintly in the darkness. The Resistance made sure of that. The Resistance, Sarah repeated. The word felt strange on her tongue. How long has it existed? Since the first gift was given. Since the first human realized the truth about this war. Varrix paused at an unmarked door. Are you ready to meet them? Before Sarah could answer, the door slid open. The chamber beyond took her breath away. Hidden beneath the city's foundations was a command center that rivaled military headquarters. But what truly shocked her were the people inside. Humans and Nexians, working side by side at various stations. A tall woman with graying hair stepped forward. Sarah recognized her instantly. Admiral Catherine Drake, reportedly killed in action 3 years ago. Welcome to the underground, Commander Chen, Drake said with a grim smile. Though I suspect you have questions about why a dead woman is greeting you. A few, Sarah managed, her mind racing. Drake had been her mentor, the reason she joined the military. Her death had hit Sarah hard. Starting with why you faked your death. Because I discovered what you're just learning now. Drake gestured at the busy command center. The war isn't what we thought. It never was. The gifting system, Project Phoenix, they're just symptoms of a deeper corruption. As if on cue, a holographic display activated in the center of the room, showing a complex network of connections between military leaders, corporate entities, and hidden research facilities. The war, Varrix explained, its skin shifting through shades of blue, is profitable for certain parties on both sides. Your weapons manufacturers, our resource cartels, they've been working together for years, orchestrating conflicts to maintain their power. Project Phoenix isn't just about defeating the Nexians, Drake added. It's about creating a crisis so severe that both societies will accept total military control. Martial law forever, in the name of security. Sarah studied the holographic display, recognizing names and connections she'd never noticed before. How deep does this go? All the way to the top, a new voice said. A Nexian emerged from the shadows, taller than Varrix, bearing the distinctive markings of their military caste. I am Karis, former fleet commander of the Nexian 3rd Expeditionary Force. Like you, I was chosen carefully. Like you, I learned the truth. The gifting system, Varrix said softly, was designed by those in power to identify potential threats. Officers with too much conscience, too much honor. They give us to you to test your loyalty. Those who accept without question are promoted. Those who show doubt are marked for elimination, Drake finished, usually in combat accidents or through convenient enemy action. Sarah's mind flashed to countless colleagues who died under suspicious circumstances after receiving their gifts. How many had discovered the truth? How many had tried to resist? Why show me all this? She asked, though she already suspected the answer. Because in 48 hours, they're launching Project Phoenix, Drake said. And you're the only one with both the access and the capability to stop it. The holographic display shifted, showing the heavily fortified facility where Sarah had discovered the virus. The delivery system for Phoenix requires direct authorization from a senior commander, Karis explained. One with your specific security clearance. They chose you because they believed you were completely loyal. Their mistake. What you're asking? Sarah's voice trailed off. The magnitude of it was overwhelming. Is treason. Drake's voice was gentle. By their definition, yes. But there's a greater treason. Against humanity itself. Against everything we swore to protect. Varix moved closer to Sarah, its skin glowing with that impossible silver starlight color. You once saved Nexian children against orders, Commander. You knew then what was right, despite what your superiors claimed. Trust that same instinct now. Sarah looked around the room, at humans and Nexians working together, at her supposedly dead mentor, at the evidence of a conspiracy so vast it defied imagination. Everything she believed in, fought for, bled for, had been built on lies. If we stop Phoenix, she said slowly, what then? The conspiracy remains. The people behind it are still in power. Phoenix is just the beginning, Drake replied. Once we prevent it, we expose everything. We have proof, data, witnesses from both sides. But we need someone they won't expect. Someone with your reputation, your combat record. Someone they think they own. Varix added. Sarah touched the medals on her uniform, symbols of honor that now felt tainted. Yet maybe, just maybe, they could serve a greater purpose. Tell me what you need me to do, she said. As the resistance leaders began outlining their plan, Sarah realized there was no turning back. She crossed a line, but for the first time since discovering Varix's truth, she felt something close to hope. The war might have been built on lies, but perhaps the peace could be built on truth, even if that truth had to be paid for in blood. Morning broke over New Shanghai like a fever dream, the toxic sky painted in shades of amber and crimson. Sarah stood in her dress uniform before the mirror, adjusting medals that now felt like brands of shame. In 12 hours, Project Phoenix would begin its deployment phase. In 12 hours, everything would change. Her comm unit chimed with an urgent message. An emergency command staff meeting. They knew. They had to know. They're accelerating the timeline, Varix said from the shadows. Its skin had taken on a deep purple hue. Worry, Sarah had learned to recognize. Our intelligence suggests they're moving Phoenix to the launch facility early. Then we move early too. Sarah checked her sidearm one last time. You should go. Get to the fallback point. You know it's a trap. Of course it is. Sarah managed a grim smile. That's counting on it. The command center was a fortress within a fortress, buried deep beneath the city's military quarter. Sarah felt the weight of eyes on her as she passed through security checkpoints, her credentials sliding her through each barrier. Her pulse quickened as she approached the final door, remembering Drake's words. The moment they realize you know, they'll try to eliminate you. Be ready. General Hayes stood at the head of the briefing table, his face carved from granite. Colonel Rivera and other senior staff lined the walls. Too many guards. All wrong for a standard briefing. Commander Chen, Hayes said smoothly. Thank you for joining us. We have matters of urgent security to discuss. Project Phoenix. Sarah kept her voice steady. Or the fact that it's not really a weapon at all. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Hayes's smile never wavered. Your gift has been talking. I see. Disappointing, but not unexpected. The Nexian was meant to test your loyalty. You failed. Did I? Sarah's hand stayed carefully away from her weapon. Or did I finally pass the real test? The one Admiral Drake designed. Hayes's smile vanished. Behind him, screens flickered to life, showing security feeds from across the facility. On each one, figures moved with purpose, humans, and Nexians working in concert, disabling systems, securing checkpoints. "Drake is dead," Rivera snarled. "No," said a familiar voice from the doorway. "I'm really not." Admiral Catherine Drake stood in full dress uniform, flanked by resistance fighters, both human and Nexian. Among them stood Karis, his warrior-cased markings gleaming. "You've lost control of the facility," Sarah said quietly. "Project Phoenix is being neutralized as we speak. But that's not really what this is about, is it? Phoenix was never the endgame." Hayes's laugh was genuine, if cold. "Clever girl. You're right. Phoenix was a catalyst, nothing more. The chaos it would cause, the fear it would generate, the perfect excuse for implementing total control. Both our societies would beg for it, and the corporations would profit from every aspect of it." Drake added, "The weapons, the containment systems, the security measures, a perfect, endless cycle of profit and power. You think exposing this will change anything?" Hayes's hand moved to his own weapon. "The system is larger than you know. The corruption goes deeper than you can imagine. Even if you stop Phoenix, even if you expose everything, nothing really changes." "Maybe not," Sarah agreed, "but we have to try. For all the soldiers who died for your lies, for all the civilians, human and Nexian, caught in your manufactured war, for everyone who believed in something better." The firefight, when it came, was brutal and swift. Hayes's security teams were elate, but they hadn't counted on facing both human and Nexian resistance fighters working in perfect concert. Sarah moved through the chaos with mechanical precision, her combat training taking over. But this time, she knew exactly why she was fighting. When it was over, Hayes lay wounded but alive, surrounded by fallen guards and secured by resistance fighters. The command center screen showed similar scenes playing out across the facility, the systematic dismantling of decades of corruption. "Broadcast terminals secured," Karis reported. "We're ready to transmit the evidence to both human and Nexian networks. Everything. The corporate connections, the manufactured conflicts, the proof of collaboration between supposed enemies. The kill switch for Phoenix is buried in the deep servers," Verix added, appearing suddenly at Sarah's side. "Once we transmit, there's no turning back. Both our societies will know everything." Sarah looked at Hayes, at the man who had once represented everything she aspired to be. "Any last words of wisdom for your loyal soldier?" Hayes spat blood and smiled. "You have no idea what you're unleashing. The chaos, the collapse of order. You'll be begging for the old system back within weeks." "Maybe," Sarah said, "but at least it will be real. At least we'll be free to choose our own path." She turned to Drake. "Send the transmission." As the data began streaming out to every corner of human and Nexian space, Sarah felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The war that had defined her entire adult life had been built on lies, but its end might finally bring something true. Outside, New Shanghai's defense shield flickered and died. Not from attack, but from choice. For the first time in decades, the real sky was visible. It wasn't pretty, but it was honest. Just like the truth they'd fought to reveal. The next 72 hours reshaped two civilizations. Sarah watched from the Resistance Command Center as decades of carefully constructed lies unraveled. The data dump had been comprehensive. Every secret deal, every manufactured conflict, every corporate connection, exposed to the harsh light of truth. Both human and Nexian societies reeled from the revelations. "Riots in New Sydney," Rivera reported. He'd survived the firefight, and surprisingly switched sides once he saw the extent of the corruption. Similar situations in most major cities. The corporate headquarters are burning. "The Nexian High Council has dissolved," Karis added, his warrior markings gleaming under the emergency lights. "The resource cartels are facing immediate prosecution. But there's uncertainty about what comes next." Sarah understood that uncertainty. The system they'd exposed had been corrupt, but it had been stable. Now everything was in flux. Hayes's words haunted her. Would they really end up begging for the old order back? Movement at the perimeter. A resistance fighter called out. Large crowd approaching. The screen showed hundreds of people converging on their position. Humans and Nexians together, many still in their respective military uniforms. But they weren't attacking. They were waiting. They want direction, Drake said softly. They want to know what happens now. Sarah looked at the crowd through the security feeds. She saw fear in their faces, yes, but also something else. Hope. The same hope she'd felt when she first learned the truth. We give them what we promised, Sarah said. The truth and a choice. She stepped out onto the facility's broad landing platform, Varix at her side. The crowd fell silent. Behind her, Drake and Karis emerged, symbols of the old order who had chosen a different path. You know who I am, Sarah began, her voice carrying across the makeshift assembly. You know what I did. What we all did. We believed we were fighting for survival, for honor, for our respective peoples. But we were fighting for profit, for power, for lies. Murmurs ran through the crowd. Sarah continued, but that doesn't mean everything we fought for was false. The courage we showed, the bonds we formed, the principles we tried to uphold, those were real. And now we have a chance to use them for something true. Varix stepped forward, its skin shimmering with that impossible silver starlight color. Our peoples are not natural enemies. The war that divided us was engineered by those who profited from our mutual destruction. But look around you. Look at how easily we work together when the lies are stripped away. The old system is gone, Karis declared. The corporations that fed off our conflict are exposed. But they were right about one thing. Chaos will follow unless we choose a different path. We're not here to impose a new order, Drake added. That's what they did. We're here to offer a choice. Sarah surveyed the crowd. The resistance isn't just humans and Nexians working together. It's proof that we can build something better. Something based on truth, on genuine cooperation. Not because we're forced to, but because we choose to. She held up her medals, the symbols of her former loyalty. These were given to me for fighting against an enemy that never truly existed. Today, I offer them as a symbol of something else, a pledge to build rather than destroy, to unite rather than divide. One by one, other soldiers in the crowd began removing their own medals, their own symbols of the old order. Nexian warriors deactivated their battle markings. The barriers between them, physical and psychological, began to crumble. It won't be easy, Sarah acknowledged. The path forward isn't clear. But for the first time, it's our path to choose. The next weeks proved her right about the challenges. The power vacuum left by the exposed conspiracy led to unrest, to power grabs, to moments when it seemed Hayes' prediction might come true. But something fundamental had changed. In New Shanghai, the defense shield remained down. The toxic sky was slowly clearing. A joint human-Nexian environmental project, using technology that had been suppressed by the corporations. Former enemies worked side by side, cleaning up the damage from decades of manufactured war. Sarah found Varix on the platform one evening, watching the first natural sunset either of them had seen in years. Having doubts, Varix asked, its skin shifting through gentle colors. Always, Sarah admitted, but not about whether we did the right thing. The gift-giving ceremony, Varix said thoughtfully, was meant to identify threats to their system. Instead, it became the key to bringing that system down. Sarah smiled. Maybe that's the real price of honor, being willing to pay it even when everything else seems lost. Below them, the city was changing. The military fortifications were being repurposed, transformed into centers for cooperation and reconciliation. Where weapon factories had stood, new institutions were rising. Places where humans and Nexians could learn from each other, build together. Your people have a saying, Varix observed. The truth shall set you free. Yes, Sarah agreed, watching the sun paint the sky in colors no defense shield could match. But they forget to mention what happens after the truth does its work. That's the hard part. That's when you have to decide what to do with that freedom. Around them, the new world was taking shape, built on the ruins of the old. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't even close. But it was real, and it was theirs to shape. And in the end, that was worth every price they'd paid to achieve it.